Well, hello everyone. Here to show you the Nintendo photo coloring activity right here. As you see right here, is I went ahead and did right here is like an example. It's like what you call is like the Nintendo Wii, and anybody probably thinking about is like if anybody here has like a Nintendo Wii or anything, or if it's fact about if you got like the Xbox it is, but basically that whenever I had got game systems, it was like it was the GameCube, of course. It was that one. It's like it was the GameCube, and then from there was the Nintendo 64, and then it was think Super Nintendo was the other game console that I had back in 1996, I think was, besides the Sega Genesis. But anyway, but talk about Nintendo Photo. It's basically that whenever that Nintendo Wii was just being announced, it was, and I remember the day we're gonna call it Revolution. It was, and I even read a news article, of course, in the papers about knowing about that they had renamed it. It was, and I can like that renamed it because I remember I was like, well, I like to think about getting myself a Nintendo Revolution, and then somebody was saying that hey, it's like yeah, taxi driver was saying I was getting a ride from somebody, and then I remember that they were like, hey, it's like I think about getting myself a Nintendo Wii. Get myself a Nintendo Revolution, it is, and thinking about that say they were saying like get myself a Nintendo Revolution, and they were like, well, it's Nintendo Wii, like what, like it's called Nintendo Wii. They changed the name of it. It's like somebody told me that those couple years ago, that would have been back in 2006, I think, was that it's like that they called, it's now called the renamed to the Nintendo Wii, and I was just like, Nintendo Wii, what the, and so I was kind of like one of those people to where it was like with the Nintendo Wii that I was like that. Well, why is it called the Nintendo Wii? I'm like, and then that's whenever I was kind of thinking about that. I'm like, oh no, I'm not gonna call it. I don't like the name of it, so I'm like, stupid name, stupid games, stupid game system. So that's whenever I was like, yeah, well, I might as well just call it Nintendo Dumb, because on your hand too, that I remember that whenever I was telling somebody I was with, it's like talking about the names that you want to have, of course, for the system. It's like knowing about that, get yourself a Nintendo Wii. Hey man, you want to play Nintendo Wii, and I tell you one thing, I don't want to even spend time with the dumb, but anybody probably think about it that, well, like, it ain't that stupid. I'm like, yeah, the controller design is pretty awesome or anything like that, but on the other hand too, that knowing about if anybody has played, say on the Nintendo Wii, that you have maybe sports, such as Mario, that you have Mario and be say riding around. If it's you're riding on on the carts, it is, and it's like we say the race carts, it is. You got right here for Mario. You got right here's the eye right here, and then that knowing about with Mario though, and be like that, yeah, that really, it's like the type of word like knowing about with Nintendo Dumb is like anybody like, well, Nintendo Wii, I would probably think about maybe something else, maybe to call it other than this Nintendo Wii, because on the other hand too, that I was thinking about, how come you didn't call it like anything, such as Nintendo Game Pal or anything like that? How come, maybe you should have stuck maybe with Revolution, it is. But anybody more likely thinking about with Revolution, I guess, with game systems, it is, you're going to wind up calling it something, just to kind of give it that third, your type title, it is. And anybody more I can think about, whenever GameCube came out, like at the time, you were like wondering about if it was the shape, of course, of the system that gave it its name. But on the end too, in a lot of ways, I'm just like thinking about like with the GameCube though, that the GameCube sounds a little bit more exciting though. Like compared to this, compared to the Nintendo Wii, in a lot of ways, people are like, yeah, like I kept thinking about, it's like what does we really stand for? Is knowing about, does it stand for, it's like knowing about the we. It's like, so far as like, we, way. Or does it stand for, it's like what you call something for we. Is knowing about, if like talking about, the type of entertainment, knowing about, if you want to go ahead and, learn how to tie your shoe on, let's say maybe maybe on the game console or anything like that. It's like talk about the Wii, but or if it's anybody probably think about it, it's like the word say maybe in French it is like for so far as is for yes. Everybody probably think about it like we like in yes, or like eat for good or anything like that. But anyway, if we're talking about maybe a game console here, something a little bit more exciting other than the three words, because on the other hand too, that anybody may be thinking about, besides if they, since they, had the Wii and then they had the Wii U and then maybe the third generation, the third game system maybe it's like anybody probably think about, what do you think the third one's gonna be called, huh? Like, well, more likely anybody probably think about, it'll probably be called like have a film. I could be wrong too, but anybody probably think about, the third generation for the Nintendo Wii could like what you calls include like what you calls like for Wii. And knowing about with Wii right here, it's like talking about like if you're not on a team, then more likely that that I can like play one of these and like get on the Wii Live or whatever. But the way I think about it, I'm like and so far as is like if we know how to spell dumb, it's like anybody probably thinking about the type of name that I called it for many years. Of course, it's like what you call is like DUMB. And anybody may be thinking about what DUMB is talking about right here. It's like for DUMB, it's like for dumb. And for Nintendo dumb, knowing about anybody more likely think about, like, hey, for Nintendo dumb, is knowing about that for each letter would more likely represent is the players. Knowing about when you got here is the players it's talking about right here, for player D and then player U and then player M and then player B it is. Anybody probably thinking about it's like for the D. D could also mean for what you call is like donut. The donut up memory. The donut up memory base. And donut up memory base. And anybody probably thinking about, maybe the number of players, huh? A lot of times I'm like, yeah, well, if that stands for the number of players and there's 4 players, right? Where's the 2 other eyes? And anybody probably think about, well, the 2 other eyes will be right here. You see, the 2 other eyes would be right here, and then knowing about, if you were to get on live, and then more like this is what you will probably see right here. You got the 2 other eyes right here, and knowing about if you want maybe 2 more eyes, you got 2 more eyes. Like, are we talking about the word dumb? Are we talking about, the word dumb? But anyway, if you like think about, if you want to maybe look at it as maybe something that maybe Dumb and Dumber could be maybe playing or anything like that, but so far as talking about, it's like for the Nintendo photo it's basically that the type of Nintendo photo I'm talking about will more likely be, something that it expects like for the game generations it is. The game generations is knowing about with the graphics, and people may be thinking about that like the type of photo that more likely anything to be creative about. That knowing about, hey, that the next generation for Nintendo, it's like that there was one time where the graphics were great, and now it seems like that they are, some people may think about they're cheesy. They are so cheesy. I'm like, we're talking about something back from the series from Nintendo 64. But other than that, like talking about, alright, cheesy. But other than that, like talking about what Nintendo Photo it is anybody probably think about our opinions, of course, about game systems it is. for those many years that I never bought the Nintendo Wii because on the other hand too that I think, anybody I've met it. I'm like, I don't like the name of it. I think that the name they gave it was kind of cheesy, and anybody more likely think about it, I guess they're gonna give it a certain name because knowing about that anybody probably think about, are we ready to play? And if I remember right, I heard on the news, this is the way they say it. It's like, are we ready to play? And knowing about with me though, that I would think that something, give it a name to where maybe everybody, maybe in their spare time, would want to play. Maybe call it like what you call is like your Nintendo Team. It's like give it a name maybe with 2 M's. Nintendo Team. But like for team, and if you want anybody probably thinking about that, if the game system were named such as something what you call is like for TEA, for Nintendo Nintendo T, but then of course Nintendo Wii. But anybody more I keep thinking about that there's something about the name, of course, that like. There is something about the name to where I just really think that it just sounds just way wacko. But other than that, I'm like the things that from my own opinion, of course, about the Nintendo game system it is, and knowing about that Wii, it's like, well, why don't we just we all the way home. But anyway, that you have right there is like what you call like for the donut up memory base. It's like a donut up memory base, and anybody probably thinking about for Wii happy. Wii happy, and anybody more likely think about the next generation for like Nintendo. It's like so far as it's talking about for Wii happy. And knowing about right here is like talking about, say for the photo it is anybody thinking that if they got a Nintendo system is knowing about the things that more likely they may expect for the Nintendo generation is. But one thing that more likely I would probably say is maybe it's like for good graphics on the other hand too, that maybe allow it to where that other gamers can maybe play with other players, you say online, like more likely like they've been doing, and on the other hand too, that knowing about give it like what you call a specific name, such as what you call is like maybe Nintendo Team, or I was thinking about also I thought at one time about that if they were going to maybe call it the next one Nintendo Toothpick, and like be like what if Nintendo was going to be a game system maybe the size of a toothpick, where you have wireless controllers, you have like it's like it take up a lot less space, and then of course it would be about twice as powerful, but then of course it would be called Nintendo Toothpick. And if I think about that, any type of these names, of course, about the shape, or if it's about what you can do with it, and the way I would think about it, I'm like, it's like give it, you say that specific name. It's like talking about what team, or it's like for are we ready? Like this, like are we ready to join? Or it's like, or if it's basically talking about we made a pal. But other than that, like if you had the controllers right here, and of course you got the the Wii mode, and of course the controllers, and the way I would think about it, I'm like, come on now. Besides, between Revolution and of course the Wii, I'm like, I think that maybe they could have stayed with Revolution and maybe called it Revo for short. Anybody probably think about for Revo for short. Revo for short, Nintendo Revo, and like maybe with TiVo or something like that, Nintendo Revo. And anybody probably think about Nintendo Revo, either Nintendo Wii or Nintendo Revo. The way I think about it, I'm like, Nintendo Wii, for whatever reason, that I don't think that really sounds too much like a name, especially, except that maybe if you were talking about maybe a memory stick or maybe a hard drive or something. But other than that, what you call is like the Wii Share It drive, the Wii Share It, member or something like that. But other than that, Nintendo Wii, but I'm like, you call it whatever they like. But other than that, like talking about when you're Nintendo is knowing about it's like what to say the gameplay it is knowing about this is what the game console can do. And other than that, like talking about for any opinions, of course, is knowing about that. I'm sure that more likely, it's like maybe keeping in mind is knowing about that. Yeah, it's like talking about with the Nintendo photo coloring activity.